I'm here with Matt Scherer, a member of the Littler Workplace Policy Institute and Littler's Data Analytics Group.
Job displacement due to automation has been going on for decades. What's different now is that we are seeing the automation of intellectual tasks. So more jobs are vulnerable to automation than ever before, and that means we face unprecedented disruption in the labor market.
So do we have a problem or an opportunity?
Both. The future labor market will be defined by what WPI calls TIDE, or Technology-induced Displacement of Employees. We say displacement to emphasize that while TIDE may wipe out particular jobs, it will not wipe out work.
What does that mean to current workers?
It depends. TIDE could be greatly beneficial if we identify job tasks that can be automated and then train the workers who perform those tasks today to perform different tasks that will be in demand in the new economy. But a recent survey of 1,200 CEOs found that while 74% plan to use AI and robotics to do workplace tasks over the next 3 years, only 3% plan to increase training. If that trend continues, if companies keep accelerating automation without preparing their workforce for the transition, then we are looking at potential economic disaster.
Wow. So are any companies working right now to prepare their workers for these disruptions?
Not enough, but some companies are helping both themselves and their workers by using the gains from automation to retrain their current workforce. They've shown that it is possible to automate tens of thousands of jobs without laying off a single worker.
What happens if companies don't prepare for TIDE?
Well, look at history. Many workers and even entire cities and regions never really recovered from previous waves of automation because there was no coordinated effort to prepare workers for the transition. Littler's TIDE at the Tipping Point white paper, published just this morning, makes clear the same thing is happening now, except this time it's happening faster and it's affecting many more workers, and America is not ready.
Matt, the audience is receiving that white paper in their email inboxes as we speak. You said America is not ready. Are other countries doing a better job of getting ready for TIDE?
Absolutely. Every other major economic power, including Germany, Japan, France, and especially China, is engaged in national efforts to adapt their labor markets to the new economic realities. In America, we have some forward-thinking companies, but no concerted effort that reflects the urgency of the situation. The tide is coming in now, and we are not prepared to ride it out.
Thanks, Matt.
Our own Gary Mathiasen predicted the AI robotics job revolution several years ago. And once again, Gary, you were right. But Littler is all about solutions. Michael Lotito of WPI, Shannon Meade, who heads government policy at the National Restaurant Association, and Lew McMurran of the Washington State Future of Work Task Force are going to help us understand how TIDE can be used for the greater good. Michael, how do we engage so America is ready for TIDE?
Paul, nothing about TIDE is preordained. But if we only hope that the most dramatic workforce transformation in history will turn out all right, history is going to judge us very harshly. We've got two urgent tasks before us. First, we've got to raise awareness of TIDE so that all stakeholders understand the problem, the opportunities, and the risks. Second, the way we educate our children and train our workers has to fundamentally change. From grade school to lifelong learning, we have to match educational and vocational training goals with realistic job opportunities and needed skills so that workers can adapt to a labor market that is going to constantly evolve. And we need bipartisan leaders who can set a course for the future right now, since America is behind so many other nations.
So speaking of leaders, 2 weeks ago, Shannon and Michael interviewed two such leaders. Let's take a look.
We're called the New Dems because a lot of it's about looking at old problems through a new lens. Oftentimes in our nation's capital, the discussion around economic issues is often focused around how to distribute the economic pie. Our focus as a coalition is on growing that economic pie and making sure that everyone has an opportunity to earn a slice of it. We've been very active in engaging on these issues around the future of work. In fact, we did a white paper that is focused on trying to ensure that no matter what zip code someone lives in, they're able to earn a good living.
Representative Stevens, your home state of Michigan and your district suffered extremely high unemployment just a short time ago. But now things are completely different. How did you embrace these changing nature of jobs to bring about this transformation?
One of the things in Michigan that's particularly exciting is all the research and development. 75% of the country's R&D and autonomous vehicle technology is coming right out of the suburbs of Detroit, 2-to-1 patents. We've got Silicon Valley knocking on our door. So communities that had seen a downturn, that were almost staring at the bottom of the barrel, stuck to their knitting, stuck to the manufacturing base, and we've created new job opportunities as well.
Representative Kilmer, you have introduced a bill this Congress. Can you tell us a little bit about that legislation, what it would do, how it would work, and how it would be paid for?
The legislation is called the Skills Investment Act, and it mirrors something that we worked on in the state of Washington called lifelong learning accounts, or LILAs for short. And the idea was that it would be an optional, portable, tax-advantaged benefit, where an employer and an employee would pay into an account. But in this instance, the account would be focused on workforce development, on training. It could be used by a worker who's in a job and looking to upskill themselves so that they can go on and move up the wage ladder, maybe go take night classes. It could be used if someone was laid off and they had to seek retraining.
What do you see as the next steps in Michigan's evolution in embracing this changing workforce?
Bring in new technologies like sensors and interconnected factory floors. The digitization that's sweeping its way over our manufacturing base is actually an economic opportunity that we can expand throughout regions like mine and throughout the country.
Part of the role of policymakers, Democrats and Republicans, is to make sure that we're empowering people to deal with that change. It's why I have great gratitude to the Emma Coalition for really shining a bright light on this, because this is about our future.
Lew, Representative Kilmer mentioned your state's efforts to reinvigorate the workforce. As a leader of the state's task force, can you tell us about that?
Thanks, Paul. Last year, our legislature established the Washington State Future of Work Task Force, the first state-level effort in the nation. One of its purposes was to make sure that TIDE does not overwhelm the workforce in Washington State, but actually helps us to maintain and continue to thrive in both rural and urban areas.
How are you proceeding?
Well, we formed a nonpartisan task force with elected officials, employers, and representatives of labor. We're currently doing research, analysis, and reaching out to groups of all kinds, including the Emma Coalition. We're developing policy recommendations for our legislature to consider and hopefully pass to our governor for enactment.
Thanks, Lew. Shannon, let's turn to you. The National Restaurant Association is the first trade association to tackle TIDE. Can you tell us why you are involved?
Absolutely. The National Restaurant Association, celebrating our centennial anniversary this year, is the leading business association for the restaurant and food service industry. We represent about 15.1 million employees. That's roughly 10% of the nation's workforce. We're the second largest private sector employer in the nation behind healthcare, so that really puts us on the front line of TIDE. You know, already we're seeing restaurants where robots cook hamburgers, make salads, brew and serve coffee, blend smoothies, and bake bread. Operators are devoting more resources to service-based technologies like ordering, kiosk, and mobile payments. So we're going to identify the skills that are likely to be replaced, automated, and create training programs to teach the new skills that are needed. When you think about it, restaurants are the cornerstone of every local community where 1 in 3 Americans get their first start. 1 in 3. So we feel like we have a real moral obligation here to be out front on this issue. And that's why we're so delighted, so proud to be co-founders of the Emma Coalition.
Thanks, Shannon. Let's take a look at another interview that Shannon and Michael did with Representative Bradley Byrne, a Republican from Alabama.
So I think we need to have a full discussion about how should our labor laws be changed to reflect the realities of this evolving workforce, evolving workplace. And then what do we need to provide in terms of education to young people and not so young people to enable them to take advantage of what's going to happen, which is AI and machine learning is going to destroy this jobs over here. It's going to create these jobs over here. The difference is the education and skill required for these jobs is so much greater than these jobs.
I know in Alabama, at the governor's request, you played a major role in remaking the state's educational system to better align with the workplace. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So we divided the state up into regions, and we went to the University of Alabama and got their Center for Business and Economic Research to give us actual data, and then spent time with employers to say, what do you need? And in each region, we could tell you, what are the top 10 skill areas that we need? And so we aligned all of our programs, both at the two-year colleges and at the high schools, and with the what we call the WIOA programs, what the state's doing outside of all that, to deliver those skills. And by doing that, we not only were getting the workforce that the employers needed, but people needed jobs, and we were giving them the education skills that they needed to get the jobs. It was a twofer. It was a great win-win.
What do you see as the next steps in the process? And how can we help you? How can we help everyone here accomplish those goals?
We need to sit around and talk about what the reality is that we're facing. If we wait, it's too late. We'll have people dislocated. We won't be able to get them retrained in time. So now's the time for us to come together, talk about what the workforce and the workplace of the evolving 21st century is going to be and how we can make our laws match up with them better. Talk about how we can go on almost like a Marshall Plan to get ourselves ready for what's getting ready to happen with both AI and machine learning, and then come together and pass those as a bipartisan effort. So we need you and your expertise in the room, but we also need for you to be advocates for us to get away from the partisanship on so many of these issues and work together. I think outside push on us is going to be necessary for us to do exactly what has to be done.
Speaking of a changing workforce, you may have seen at the conference some cobots helping hand out registration materials. They're also going to serve as bartenders during our social events. So, Michael, we've heard the Emma Coalition mentioned several times. I know it's formed as a nonprofit, bipartisan think tank, but what does Emma stand for?
Why don't you come center stage and I'll show you. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to Emma, my 7-year-old granddaughter who inspired the Emma Coalition. Emma, say hello. I think you made some new friends. The workforce revolution is not just about machines and artificial intelligence. It's about real people. People who are in the workforce today, and people like Emma who are going to join it very soon. So for me, this effort is extraordinarily personal. We have to meet this challenge now, before, as Bradley Burns said, it's going to be too late. Because my Emma, and your Emma, and all of the Emmas need us to ensure that the 21st is the next American century. Emma, Papa loves you very, very much, and I will not let you down.
Thank you for thinking about me.